Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Clark. I've been a hypnotherapist for the last 8 years and I've been a holistic therapist for the last 14 years. So for every Friday I'm going to talk about the top 100 fears and phobias in the world and how therapy, as I'm a hypnotherapist, such hypnotherapy helps cure them. So number 89 is the fear of opinions, and this is a phobia called Allodoxaphobia. Now, I'm doing this on Friday, but as of next Tuesday I'll be releasing a video about censorship and council culture, so it's very interrelated, and then also about some cultural things within that. Anyway, the word allodoxaphobia can be considered a derivative of doxophobia, though both words have contradictory meanings, where doxophobia stands for the fear of expressing opinions, which we will talk about another time. Allodoxaphobia is in the fear of hearing other people's opinions. So very much a difference. The word allodoxaphobia comes from the Greek allo, meaning different, dox, meaning opinion, and phobos, meaning from the Greek god of fear. Now, people with a fear of opinions, phobia, live in constant fear and anxiety of hearing people's opinions about them. They often realise that their phobia is unfounded and irrational, yet they are unable to overcome it. As a result, they place many restrictions upon themselves. So the fear of opinions phobia might strike at any age. Not only adults, even young kids can be afraid of being or receiving the end of people's opinions. As the fear becomes deeply inhibited in their consciousness, they tend to stop answering questions or participating in any activities as they are afraid of people's judgments. Allodoxaphobia falls under the category rare and unusual social phobias. This phobia can isolate the sufferer greatly and can especially hamper one's professional lives. So, what is the causes of allodoxaphobia? While there are many Americans and people around the world who fear not being able to voice their opinion, a small portion of the population just does not want to hear to other people's opinions. Now, we hear this a lot in the news, we hear this in social media, and we hear this in the idea of actually when people go on these college campuses, they don't like hearing other people's opinions. The trigger for the opinion phobia is usually the same as the triggers of other social phobias, negative or traumatic episodes in the past. Caregivers, teachers, or parents are often responsible for triggering the phobia in a growing child. Words of caution or criticism constantly muted out to a child or mented out to a child might lead to regular suppression. An abused or traumatized child is also very likely to develop allodoxaphobia. We also would call this in the education system EBD, emotional behaviour difficulties, and so forth. Usually passive or sensitive people who fear criticism and reprisals are most likely to suffer from allodoxaphobia. They might have experienced criticism in school or at work that causes a response triggered by amygdala, a part of the brain. Yeah, it's part of the brain, how it processes information. The mind then triggers the same response over and over again when it deals with a similar stressful situation. It does this as to protect the individual, who then, to prevent the response, tries to avoid hearing opinions about themselves. Now, the media can also trigger the fear of opinions phobia. Having access to materials in print, graphics on TV, or social media can cause extreme panic in some anxious individuals. Some other intrinsic causes of allodoxaphobia include hereditary factors or genetic causes. They also sometimes say this can also come into past life regression, that from past life that does that. Again, not 100% proof, but there is rumours of it. So the symptoms of fears of opinion phobia. An allodoxaphobia, an individual suffers from many symptoms, both physical and emotional. These people are simply afraid of listening to feedback of any kind. It literally causes a full panic attack that includes sweaty palms, accelerated heart rate, rapid and shallow breathing, feeling sick, nauseated, feeling angry when an opinion is expressed, no matter good or bad, their flight or fight response, trying to avoid all situations where an opinion might be expressed, an insecurity or lack of self-esteem. I'd also go into this as well, is their lack of education to be able to actually take constructive criticism, which I think is an issue where you're seeing in the academic fields a lot at the moment, especially with younger people coming up. Whereas my generation, we had to deal with a lot of criticism, and I think sometimes it affects you, sometimes it doesn't. I think it took me a long time with my own personal work to get over criticism. Now I actually don't care. People can criticise me all they want, and does it hurt? No, not really. I think it's just an opinion. That's it. And like my grandfather used to say, everyone has an opinion, like everyone has an arsehole. So anyway, some of these people, when they don't get all these issues, they naturally become socially withdrawn, might be even depressed to an extent, and so forth. So there's also other issues here. Overcoming and treating the fear of opinions. So once the root cause of allodoxaphobia is known, a therapist can help the individual have a more controlled response to the triggering factors, right? So this is where everybody says, I'm triggered, and you hear this in students and so forth. Oh, I'm triggered. Oh, that's triggering. Instead of saying, oh, it's triggering, actually get a therapist to help you stop being triggered by it. That's where people are using the word like triggered on all this psychosis and psychoanalytical language, but then actually don't do the work to stop it or actually reduce it, which is a problem. So with this is usually done through therapies like talk therapy, psychotherapeutic counselling, group therapy, systematic desensitization, hypnotherapy. Now the hypnotherapy part, how I would do this, is finding out the root cause of this and then finding out where that started, because if it started with a parenting issue with someone criticising, once you get to that parent and reframe it, the person can understand it. Now they know as an adult that they don't take it to heart. That can usually have a knock-on effect, which then stops them feeling triggered by every other opinion they ever hear. That's probably the main thing you would do as a hypnotherapist, and that's a key point to do. However, the hardest part of overcoming allodoxaphobia is that the person might refuse to seek therapy in the first place. This happens to a lot of people. They will moan and say that they will say, I'm struggling, I'm depressed, all these things, but then they won't do the therapy in the first place. And even if you offer it, this is something I think for therapists as well. A lot of therapists, when you first start, you do offer therapy to people, maybe to get experience. Also, you do pro bono work, and then you actually find that people then still will refuse to do it. So you have to actually look at that in a bigger context of why do they refuse to do it, no matter what you offer, and then it's actually then sometimes that you can't always help everybody. So you've got to only help the people who do want to be helped. So family members play a crucial role in getting the person to agree to it. The phobic should be encouraged to express their opinions, while loved ones might exercise caution and express their opinions very gently. Again, this I think is the kid gloves approach. I don't think always works, because sometimes actually people do need that push. But again, with people when they're not willing to change or willing to listen, that's why they're actually some of the hardest people to work with. So though it's number 80 whatever in the list, it's probably one of the hardest things if someone's got this issue. Small exercises may be undertaken to ensure that the person is able to handle opinions in small doses, gradually increasing their onslaught until the person is ready and confident enough to handle them without having panic attacks. Treatment for allodoxaphobia often tends to be a long one. The sufferer, their family members, might show a high level of patience and remain hopeful throughout the duration of treatment. Again, if you're a good hypnotherapist, you can probably deal with this in one session and actually go to the crux of it. But because obviously the family are around it, you also have to work out where their triggering is. And actually sometimes if they are family members, you can start seeing where the triggers are for the client. And that actually means that you can work with them. Again, when you work with a client, you always work on singly. You don't have the parents come in, which can be quite damning, especially if things come up, they're being angry with the parent. The parent doesn't want to sit there hearing the anger of the child, and or the teenager or the adult they become. So small exercises can be undertaken to ensure that the person is able to handle opinions in small doses, gradually increasing their onslaught. Yeah, and therapies like meditation, yoga, and alternative mind-body therapies might be included alongside conventional treatment to completely overcome the fear of opinions phobia once and for all. So, with this, as a side note, an opinion, or the fear of opinions, I believe most people should be able to get over, and I think they should go to therapy to sort it out. I also believe that if you have people with different opinions, whether you agree with them or not, is that you should actually have the capacity and education, academic, and also it sounds horrible to say this, the backbone to actually listen to it, decipher it, research why they've said it, and then to understand it, instead of being so angry about it or abrupt or triggered. And this is where I see trouble with most society, with this new generation coming up. They're so triggered by things which are, in some respects, are actually quite trivial, whereas actually the things which are really, really matter for people, they don't seem to matter to them. And I think that balance has got to be reshifted in our society, because otherwise we're going to have a group of new generation are coming up, not willing to go to therapy, becoming more problematic than their parents were. And then this will also be an onslaught, because then it will also bring up their children to be then even having more issues, because they also, that every generation believes they are owed more. They also believe that they take things for granted, and without that they don't have the constructive criticism to change their directory or where their trajectory goes. So just a personal opinion, but I do think that is something where most of the clients I work with are usually 30 years old and above, because by that time they would hopefully have matured enough to be able to really want to make a change and willing to do the work. So anyway, discussions on this, any thoughts or feelings, if you want to argue with me or discuss this with me, I'm more than happy to. And as of, like I said, coming up, I'm going to talk about censorship and cancel culture, and that's coming up on Tuesday. So this will be quite a big subject, which I hope to be getting people responding on social media and so forth, and see what people think. Anyway, till next time.